Hello, welcome. First of all, thank you for your interest in our webinar, and we hope you will enjoy during our session with Mr. Milan from Alapala and Mr. Ernie Komola as our guest speaker from Perantani Food Solutions. Our session will take around 45 minutes, and please note that you can use the Q&A tab at the bottom for your questions. We will be collecting your questions during the webinar and try to reply as much as possible at the end of our presentation. And the rest of all your questions will be definitely individually replied by email after completing our session. Please don't points. We will also publish the record of this webinar on our website. I want to introduce you Mr. Eni Komola as the co-founder and CEO of Perantani Food Solutions. He has a bachelor's degree in food technology, master's of science in food supply chain, and PhD in science as being specialized in cereals and dairy food production files. Mr. Mola is 48 years old, having a total of 23 years experience in this field and reigns Perfetto One Mel in R&D, manufacturing and management positions. He launched also his new corporation for ingredients and technical consultancy in pasta and extruded products based in Moldova and Nigeria. Mr. Milan, I just want to ask you if you have anything to add before handing over the speech to Mr. Mola.
Sorry. Good afternoon all from Istanbul, and I hope that you find these webinars interesting and helpful to you. And I take this occasion to thank Mr. Enrico for giving his time to make this presentation, which I feel you will find very interesting and fact-giving. Thank you, Enrico.
Hi, good afternoon from Moldova. Now we will start with the presentation, and I will share. Here we are. Okay, it's a pleasure to be here, and I thanks Alapala and all of the staff and team member of Alapala Group, and especially thanks to Mr. Milan that invite me for this webinar. I hope it will be interesting. Now let's go straight to the point. Due to the time and due to also to the attention curve that usually cannot be more than 1 hour, I just select 4 key points and topics to talk about. I will give you some quick pasta figures, the type of pasta and the technology system, a very quick overview, and then we will go straight to the pasta raw material, which are the typical raw materials and which are the quality key parameters, and then we will have a conclusion and the question time. Now, let's talk about the pasta. Actually, the only country in the world that has a specific law, very detailed, that is talking about the pasta raw materials and the pasta itself is Italy. You can see on the slide the reference, if you want to check on internet, is the law number 187 is the DPR. DPR means the President's Republic law, and it was disclosed on 9 February 2001. So we can say that is quite recent. Basically, this law it's defining the 5 types of pasta, which are the characteristic of the pasta. and obviously which are the connected characteristic of the raw material used to do the pasta. Just to give you a brief idea, basically based on this law exist three kinds of pasta. One is the pasta of the durum wheat semolina, and based on this law in Italy, it's possible to produce anything called pasta only with 100% durum wheat semolina. It's not possible to use a soft wheat, and the product must have no more than 12.5% moisture. This is the moisture of the pasta, not the semolina. The content of the ash cannot be more than 0.90, like you can see here. The protein must be minimum 10.5, and the acidity measured in the Soxhlet and Henkel degree cannot be more than 4. Then we have something that is called pasta di semolato, that basically it's in French they call semi-complet. It's basically something closer to the whole wheat flour, but it's in the middle, that you can have more or less the same parameter, but obviously the ash content is more because it's between 0.90 to 1.35. You have higher protein, you must have higher protein content because obviously you put a little bit bran in it, and again, a little bit different acidity. Then we go to the whole wheat pasta. Whole wheat pasta is possible to produce, but you should mention very clearly pasta for whole durum wheat semolina. You will have the same, you should have the same moisture, but obviously the ash content should be between 1.40 to 1.80. That if you want to declare the whole wheat durum wheat and the whole wheat semolina, and you have minimum 11.5 protein and 6 Soxhlet degree. Then in the same law, it's also regulated the egg pasta. Basically, if you want to produce in Italy egg pasta dry, you should add minimum 4 eggs, and the eggs are considered 50 grams each one. So you should add minimum 200 grams of liquid eggs. You cannot use powder. You can use fresh eggs, raw eggs, or liquid pasteurized eggs. Then you can see here the parameters of this kind of pasta. Obviously, the protein are higher because you are adding eggs. Then you have what we call usually fresh pasta. And you can have two types of fresh pasta. One is a very fresh one that is sold in the shop or in the small on the small laboratories, and must have a minimum 24% humidity minimum. And also it's really important that you measure the water activity between 0.92 to 0.97. You can have the same kind of pasta, but it's called stabilized. That usually it's very typical again in Europe, US and Italy as well, is the one that is sold in the chilled chain at +4, and this is 20% minimum humidity and a water activity maximum 0.92. This is basically the definition and the specification for the pasta based on the Italian law. Obviously, in the world exist many kinds of pasta. Now, I want to give you a tips, an interesting overview about the consumption. This is, let's say, rough figures of the per capita annual consumption in kilograms. Obviously, Italy is still the higher eater in pasta, and the consumption is around 26 kilo per capita per year. Then the second country per capita consumption is Tunisia and Venezuela, because traditionally they consume a lot of pasta, and in Venezuela traditionally there is a big Italian community. Another very important country for the pasta is the United States, because the consumption is around 11 kilo per capita. And then here in this map, we will not go through all, you can see the per capita consumption. Obviously, in this in this data, it's considered what is considered traditional pasta. I mean, fresh, dry, and eggs pasta. Is not included the noodles that we can say it's called Asian pasta. Then I have also some other figures, very interesting. The global annual volume of pasta, in this case, are included the noodles and the Asian pasta, because these numbers are coming from the customs together with the Nielsen numbers, some data monitor. It's, let's say, a combination of different figures. And we have an annual consumption in 2018 of 68 million metric tons per year. And we have a growing rate globally about 3 to 5%. Obviously, the consumption increasing, it depends on the area, it depends on the geographical area of the market. Then I have another interesting data that maybe for some client can be more interesting, is the consumption in the BRICS. That if you don't know what does it mean, BRICS means Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, plus the emerging market, that mainly it's Africa, is 25 million metric tons per year with a higher growing rate of 7 to 8% of consumption. The growing, anyhow, generally speaking, the pasta consumption is growing, and it's due to the fact that it's a cheap product, long shelf life, a higher protein content, and attractive and fancy product for the younger generation. I also put the two main global, just for your knowledge, the two main global players for pasta. The first players worldwide is Barilla. They have 5 main brands that are Barilla, as you know, Vojello, Yemina, Vesta, and Philips. And they produce and sell around 2.2 million metric tons of pasta globally per year. The second global player, it's a Spanish group, Ebro Puleva, and they have more brands than Barilla, around 10. Here you can see the name, and maybe some of them you know, Perantani, it was a very famous French brand, Santa Lucia Italian, Garofalo Italian brand, and Lustucru is Latin America, Ronzoni is US. They produce around roughly 1.5 million metric tons per year. Then all the other, let's say, players are regional players, and they are in the cluster of production between 100,000 to 500,000 metric tons per year. You have also another data interesting, that is the average shelf life, the average shelf price. That again is an average, so can be different between the country and the market, but it's just to give you an idea of the shelf price of the product, that is between $1 to $2 per kilo. Now, here we have a summary of the pasta type based on the technology and based also on many other different way or category to classify. Let's start from the raw materials, that is the topic. We have, as we said, the durum wheat pasta, that is the typical Italian traditional pasta. Then we have the soft and hard wheat and the buckwheat pasta. Buckwheat is much more typical for the Asian noodles. You can eat buckwheat in Korea, in Japan, in China as well. And the soft and the hard wheat pasta is much more common in Middle East, in Africa, in some area of Europe as well, like France, like Poland and Germany, and some area of Latin America. Then you have maize flour that you can use to produce a gluten-free pasta, and now it's becoming trendy and more trendy every year. rice flour, again, is a typical for gluten-free, but also for Asian pasta. You have a rice noodles that basically is a spaghetti made by rice flour. Um, then you have eggs, like we said for egg pasta. Then you have alternative raw material like legumes and alternative peas, chickpeas, lentils, and so on. Then we have also some product that we add dairy, like in Turkey or Greek, we have manti, or we have some other product in Greek, but this is a very niche and typical regional product. Then let's go for the shape classification. In the shape classification, you have fresh pasta, that we already discussed is a different category. You have a long cut that is the most common in spaghetti, short cut that is the most common, it's penne and macaroni. Then we have a nest pasta that is something round, and I will show later with a picture. Then we have a stamped or pancetta, that the most typical pancetta pasta, so-called pasta Bologna, is the bow ties, the farfalle. Then we have a flat pasta that typically is the lasagne. And then we have Asian pasta, that we have many kind of Asian pasta. We have ramen, noodles, udon, and many more. Then let's go for the first step of the technology that we can, let's say, summarize in the preparation. Preparation, we have mixing that can be done by in a continuous process by a vessel, and then we will see later how we have a stamping and punching that is a machine that is used to use the bow-ties. Then we have cutting, then resting technology, lamination, extrusion, kneading, and forming. These can be all together, can be separate, or can be one to next the other one. It depends what you want to produce and how is the line. Then we have the other part of the technology, that is the processing. In the process, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but there is a background noise coming from your microphone.
But it's not from mine.
Because it's also not from mine.
I don't know. I will try to reduce the volume, but it's better now. It's okay? Hello?
Yes, it's okay, Enrico. It's better now.
Okay, good. Okay, we have the processing, drying, toasting, steaming, frozen, cooking, and sterilizing. All these kind of process can produce a finished product with different characteristics, like instant pasta. The typical instant pasta example is the cheese macaroni in the US, because it's ready to cook very fast and is pre-cooked during the process. Then we have a couscous. Couscous is not exactly pasta, but is in the same category, is steamed. Then we have a frozen fresh pasta that you can, it's very common in Europe, and dry pasta and many others. Then the last part of the technology is the packaging. Again, with the packaging, you can have a different type of pasta. The first two, the pillow pack and the flow pack, are the most common for the dry pasta. Is the typical package for the macaroni in the POBB or in the film. The flow pack is the typical package for spaghetti. Then we have a cup that is typical for instant noodles and also now for instant pasta. Then we have a modified atmosphere and vacuum product that is very typical for fresh pasta. Then we have a canning. Canning is an example, is a Campbell, is the Campbell can. And then we have a you have now you have here some example about the pasta shape. actually, the pasta shape is something that we the number of the pasta shapes is something that we cannot define, because I have always a joke about that. In California, in the Silicon Valley, they love to develop new software to update. And in Italy, we love, in the Pasta Valley, we love to develop shapes. So it's a indefinitive number. You have a long cut, you have a nest. This is a nest shape, what I was calling. This is the bow ties, the pancetta that you need a special machine. This is a shortcut, fusilli, or here you have a pipe, here you have a penny. Here is a long pasta, spaghetti, then you have a linguine, tagliatelle, and many others. I invite you to put on Google pasta shape, and you can enjoy and see how many shapes are existing in the world, and there are so many. Let's go straight now to the raw materials. We have I want to talk about the two main raw material used for the pasta, that are the durum wheat and the soft and the hard wheat. Obviously, the durum wheat is the historical and traditional raw material, but is not available everywhere, first. Secondly, is a little bit more expensive than the soft and the hard wheat. And third, it depends on the market where you are, if you need to use it or not. But the difference is not just a name. The difference between durum wheat and the other wheat is also that are cousins, but are not brothers. Because the durum wheat is a Triticum turgidum, that is the botanical name, and the common wheat, hard and soft, are the Triticum aestivum. I don't want to enter in the details, but morphologically and genetically are very different. You can see the spicklet here of durum, and you can see the other spicklet of hard and soft, that they are very different. Second, genetically, one has 42 chromosomes, that is the soft wheat. The durum wheat has 28 chromosomes. So genetically and morphologically are different. Here you have, let's say, a nice picture to understand on which wheat is fitting which kind of product. I took the American or US classification just to make it easy, but obviously it's existing many different kind of classification. But just to be more clear, you can see the soft wheat, the soft red wheat, the hard wheat, the hard red wheat, harder spring, and durum. These wheat are differentiated by many kind of parameters. But let's say that the main difference, apart of, like we said, genetically and morphologically between durum wheat and soft and hard wheat, are the type of protein, the grade of and the relation between starch and the protein, and of course the kernel itself of the wheat, and the grade of the vitreosity, so the hardest value of the hardest parameter of the wheat. The durum is the most hard wheat that is in between, if you classify and compare to the other wheat. Now, why the other are good for the bakery and why the durum is good for the pasta? Because now we will go straight to the technical points. Because the typical soft wheat flour, or we can say also a little bit hard wheat flour, it's white color, you have small particles, and usually it's very powdery. And here you can see the starch grains that I took a picture in the lab by microscope, electronic microscope. And here you can see the same picture of the durum. You can see the difference between the starch granules To start I think you should, Milan. I think you should switch off the microphone. Mike, you have to mute the microphone, please. Okay, you can see the difference between the two granules, and it's very clear that in the durum wheat, of course, the color of the flour, it's amber and it's more yellow than the typical soft wheat flour. You have large particles and very well defined, with very sharp edge and very well defined starch granules. This is the two main difference, that it's coming because of the genetics of the wheat. So you cannot do a lot to close or to reduce this difference. Now, let's go a little bit on the process, what's going on and how is produced the pasta. Again, the big difference between soft wheat and bakery product compared to dry pasta, let's go, is that pasta is a continuous process, and the quantity of the water, it's less, much more less than the bakery typically, and the time of mixing of to create the dough in the pasta is quite fast. I give you a brief flow and sketch of the pasta production technology. We have a raw material feeder. We have a doser that can be volumetric, or can be also weighing scale, or can be in a different, it can be different kind of feeder. But the important thing is that it's continuous. It's not a batch production. After the feeder and after the doser, it's going in something that can we call premixer or centrifuge. This centrifuge is helping to start the hydration and absorption the water from the raw materials. You have usually a high-speed shaft that is rotating between 700 to 1000 RPM, together with injection nozzle that is injecting the water. And it will last a few seconds, like 5 to 10 seconds, this process. After the centrifuge, let's say the pre-dough is going to a main vessel or main mixer. And in the main vessel, in the main mixer, you have a rotating shaft paddle that basically it's moving the dough, and he's helping and creating enough mechanical work to help the hydration of the flour. Usually this process can last between 5 to 10 minutes, and can be vacuum, can be atmospheric, or can be semi-vacuum, or also can be resting belt. This is a typical in the Asian production. You have always, during the process, you have, before to shape the product, you have a resting time or resting belt, because during the rest, the water is going to distribute between the granules, and it's going to be well distributed along the dough. Then you have a distribution or vacuum mixer, and then you have the screw. Now, the screw, it's again another very important part of the process, because normally, again, this is a rough figures, you are entering in the screw, basically in this position, with a density of the dough that is around 0.7 kilo per cubic decimeter. And because of the screw, that is compressing the dough, you will reach up to 1.2 kilo per cubic decimeter. So you are increasing the density of the dough by 80% or even 90%. This we will see that is a very important part on the creation of the gluten network. Then after the screw, you will have the gasket and the dies, and then you will ship it, the product, and you will have finally the spaghetti. Then, now, which is the components of the pasta, raw materials? Whatever durum or whatever soft, you have protein, starch, lipids, and minerals, substances. Typically, protein are composed by 4 sub-protein or 4 kind of protein that are albumin, globulin, gliadin, and glutenin. Normally, the albumin and the globulin, they don't have really a functional part during the dough formation, but of course, they're still very important because it's a part of the protein, of the protein part in the raw materials. The most important are the gliadin and the glutenin, because these 2 elements, we will see later, they have a rheological and functional action on the dough. Then another real important components are the starch. Typically, again, this is a rough figure, so typically the starch in the flour or semolina, mainly the semolina, is composed by 25% amylose and 75% amylopectin. This part is also representing the 60 or 75% of the components inside the kernel of the wheat. And so it's a really extremely important raw material, extremely important component on the flour itself. Then you have lipids that usually is around 1 to 2% part that mainly they come from the germs of the kernel of the wheat, and then you have minerals that typically are the what we call ashes. Now, why gliadin and starch are very important? Because, as we said, you need to add water to do the dough. Now, you can see from this sketch, when you add the water, what will happen? Typically, the starch is not absorbing water as it is and need to be bricked and need to be used hot water, or even some part of the amylopectin amylose still they cannot be hydrated by water, and they have to be bricked in single sugar like dextrin, maltose, and glucose. This is the typical job that is being done by the amylase. Unfortunately, this action by the amylase for the pasta is very negative. You can see from the face that is not happy, because we need to keep the starch as it is, and for mainly 2 reasons. One, because the time of the dough formation is very limited, and so we need to have the water available for the protein and not for the starch. And second, because if you are going to break the starch, you are going to create one of the defects of the pasta, that is the stickiness or starchiness, how you want to call it. That basically is the sensation that you have in the mouth when the pasta is greasy, and it feels that it's greasy, oily on the surface. This is not likely, and people don't like, and also it's visible is not good when you have the pasta very sticky. So remember, because this part, it's the most important part, that it will be connected to the milling. And that is also a job that we are doing together with Alla Pala, because the starch damage for the pasta should be less as possible. That basically is exactly in opposite way if you compare to the flour that you produce for bakery. So this part, it will be the key point to make the soft wheat, or let's say even the hard wheat flour, as better as possible and as close as possible to the durum wheat semolina. Because obviously we cannot act on the genetical difference, because the protein, and now we will go to talk about this point, the protein coming from the durum wheat are different. Basically, the ratio between the gliadin and glutenin are different. So the rheological results and the quality results are better if you make pasta with durum wheat. But we can work on the starch damage, because this is the same. The starch composition and the starch action on the pasta dough formation is exactly the same. And we will take back this topic a little bit later now. Let's go and talk about the gliadin and the glutenin. The glutenin, you can see, are long fibers, and the gliadin are more glomerular, are more compact. And typically, when you are hydrating this part and you are providing mechanical works, you can see the difference between this, that you didn't provide the mechanical work and is just hydrated, and this after the mixing and after the extrusion. Because you need the mechanical works to redesign and restructuring the network, the interweight between the two proteins. Because the protein just hydrated are not enough, because the network is quite random and it's not well formed. And here you can see very clearly the difference. Now, I will let you read this technical part, but what I want to explain and what I said before, I want to give you this, information. The ratio between the gliadin and the glutenin, it's really important to understand which quality you will get for the pasta. And basically, the most important part to get a good quality pasta is the glutenin, because the glutenin is the molecule that gives you the tenacity and resistance of the dough. So the good pasta, you need to have higher percentage of glutenin and lower percentage of gliadin. This again is something interesting for you to know. If you are going to do something that is very common in the bakery addition, basically you are going to add gluten, vital gluten, in the flour just to increase the water absorption and to give also higher volume. For the pasta dough is absolutely negative, because the gluten vital, the one that is sold for addition, it's coming from the wash part of the starch extraction. So normally the gliadin percentage in the gluten vital is higher, and moreover the protein, these two proteins are already damaged. So add gluten to the pasta flour or flour that you use for pasta doesn't bring any value, and actually is counterproductive. Now, Why starch? Because as I explained, the starch is the main problem for the quality of the pasta, for the stickiness, but not only. Because when you have a lot of starch damage in the flour, you have also dextrin, maltose, and glucose. This it will help to create a reaction between the protein and this sugar. And through the high temperature that you are using in the dryer, you are going to have the Maillard reaction. That is the color, the brown color, or the very reddish color. That is extremely negative. It's extremely negative because of the color. It's extremely negative because it's creating weakness on the pasta, and you will have a lot of breakage in the packaging, and you have a lot of fragments that basically you will lose a product, and also you will lose the appearance of the product that is not good. So for the pasta, the right starch damage value is between 5 to 7%, but actually I'm strongly suggested to be below 5%. Now, how to get this value in the typical soft wheat flour? Because now I don't want to teach about specifically semolina, because who is grinding the semolina, he already knows that semolina is for pasta. So the meal itself and the knowledge of the millers are already focused to produce the better quality for pasta. The problem is for the people that they are using soft wheat and hard wheat to produce pasta, because typically, but that is normal, the meal is designed to produce a bakery flour. So it's designed to produce high starch damage because it will help in the water absorption, is designed to produce low ash content that I will explain, is designed to produce fine flour, but for pasta you need coarse flour, and also is the typical parameters that the soft wheat miller they are measuring are very typical for bakery, like the alveograph that is measuring the stretchiness and the elasticity, that for pasta it's less important because you need tenacity, because you don't have yeast in the pasta. So by changing the approach to produce the flour, the soft wheat flour for the pasta, you can have a better result and avoid to buy expensive additives or expensive wheat. But it's a little bit difficult because obviously all the meal, because that is the business, are set up for the bakery. So just to repeat, 5 to 7% starch damage, but it's much better to be less than 5%. And the granulation. The granulation is extremely important because through the granulation, you have the cinematic, or let's say the way how you hydrate the different the particles in the dough. Typically semolina, but again I'm strongly suggested to follow this parameter even in the flour, or to try to be as close as possible. You have a granulation between 150 microns and 300 microns. This is, let's say, 80% of the granulation distribution in the semolina. And then obviously you have some at 400 and some even at 500. And then of course you have also something below 150. But again, This is for durum with semolina is quite common. For soft wheat, absolutely not. And is a big twist. Now, why is important the granulation? Because if you have too small granules, what will happen? These granules, it will hydrate very fast. So, as we saw before, what will happen? If you have only hydration, but you don't have mechanical work, the gluten network is not very good created, because you have all the gliadin and the glutenin that are hydrated. And also typically in the small fraction of the flour and the semolina, you have more starch damage. So if you have a too big particle, obviously the problem is in the reverse way, because you have less hydration. So the perfect dough is a combination between fine or 150 micron particles and 300, because in this mix of particle you have the right hydration and the right way also to move the water between the granules. This it will allow to create a perfect dough with a perfect quality of gluten network. I thanks for the patience, and I'm open to reply or to answer any question on query. Thank you very much, and please, it's open the question time.
Enrico, there are a lot of questions which many people ask. First one is, what is the difference between the pasta manufactured from durum wheat and the pasta, as you say, from soft hard wheat?
Okay, the main difference are in the color of the pasta, because the durum wheat typically has higher B index. B index is the way to measure the yellowish. The yellowish of the wheat is coming mainly from the beta carotene, and typically genetically, again, the durum wheat has higher beta carotene quantity, and also due to the vitreosity of the kernel itself, when you are grinding the durum wheat, the color is more bright. So you have a brighter color. You have, obviously, as I explained, due to the protein quality, you have a better result in the gluten network formation. So the firmness, the biteness, the sensation, the feeling in the mouth is much better. And you will never reach the same level with the soft wheat and hard wheat, because this is due to the genetics of the wheat. You cannot do nothing. You can be close. You can try to make a good pasta, but for a pasta eater like me, like Italian or Americans, they will always discover 100% semolina pasta, 100% soft wheat pasta. Obviously, you can mix it. You can mix it and you can have something close. But the main difference are these one, are the color and the cooking quality of the product.
You mean the cooked texture?
The cooked texture, exactly. The cooked texture and the mouth feeling.
So I will just look if there are any other interesting questions, which we don't have much time.
No, I saw a very interesting question, the difference between mixing and kneading.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
This is extremely interesting question. Okay, the mixing, basically, you don't apply, or it's very low. I hope the people will understand share rate. Basically, in the mixing, you are just moving the particles and you are just creating an opportunity, let's say, an opportunity to meet. Or I can make an example. Mixing is like to meet people in the Facebook. Kneading is like to go to the gym. Okay, because kneading apply a share. Basically, it's applying a mechanical friction to the dough. Basically, it's in the middle between extruding. So you have a mixing, you have a kneading, and then you have extruding. Kneading, apply shear to the dough, apply friction. I see the okay.
There are some questions which I don't think we have time to answer, but we will reply to those questions by email. Specifically, what is the effect of glucose oxidase addition in effects of pasta? And then there is another one, short goods based pasta. So it's a different concept.
No, I would like to reply because that is an interesting question. How to control the water activity of the dry pasta during the manufacturing process in continuous full automated production line? Okay, it depends if it's for fresh or for it depends if it's for egg pasta or normal pasta. I can imagine that is for normal dry pasta. And the water activity you can control by standardizing the humidity of the flour of semolina that you are using. Basically, it's better to use higher or moist flour and moist semolina to produce pasta. Typically, the humidity that also, this is different than bakery, because typically the humidity that I suggest to use to produce pasta is between 14.5 to 15.5%, whatever, flour or durum wheat. Because of this, it will allow to control the water activity and to increase the possibility to hydrate well the dough. The second possibility, obviously, is the drying diagram, because it depends how you dry the pasta. Basically, you will reduce the available, or you will increase the available water on the product. This kind of approach is very typical when you are going to produce instant pasta. Instant pasta, typically, because the moisture of the finished product that you are using to pack to produce instant pasta is around 7 to 8%. So in that case, it's very important how the value of the water activity, because it can interact with the product that you are adding in the instant pasta. About this point, this is just a general answer, but I will be happy to answer by email, and then you can send it to Mr. Othman, Mohammed Othman.
There's another question, Enrico, from Oman. What is the right temperature of the dough while being extruded to keep less starch damage?
Absolutely. That is another important part. Okay, first, you need to work on your meal, and you need to ask the pasta flour with less than at least 7%, but I suggest 5%. So first, the job has to be done in the meal to reduce the starch damage. And that is let's say 70% to have a good result. 30% you can manage by reducing the temperature of the barrel and the head. I always suggest that the barrel cannot be more than 30-32 degrees, and the head of the extrusion cannot be more than 26-28 degrees. Obviously, another good way to maintain the dough not too hot is to add cold water. But again, if you add cold water, you can have another problem, that is the white spot, because the cold water is difficult to, is a little bit, let's say, the cinetic to hydrate cold water, it's a little bit slow. So if the water is too cold, you need more mixing time. because you need more time to hydrate. But generally speaking, the temperature of the dough cannot be temperature of the dough, not water. You should measure the temperature of the dough inside the vessel. Cannot, I suggest, cannot go above 36, 38 degrees. Barrel around 32 degrees, head 26 degrees. With this parameter, you can reduce the starch damage during the mixing. But obviously, the first job is in the mill.
So, Mr. Elan, I hope this is clear.
Yeah, I know also Mr. Alan because he worked with me.
Okay, good.
Okay. Yeah. Production of short good made pasta, how does it look or feel with respect to other short good pasta?
Yes.
Okay, this is interesting. Okay, if you want to produce maize pasta, you should understand something before to start. First, you have two ways, let's say, just to summarize easily. The first way is to produce maize pasta is to treat the maize flour. So you need to pre-cook somehow, or you need to extrude it, or you need to treat the maize pasta to break the starch and to pre-gelatinize the starch. Or if you want to use this raw maize flour, you should do this kind of treatment directly in the mixing time and process. Basically, you should cook and steam the dough, because to produce maize pasta, you need to gelatinize the maize. Otherwise, the appearance of the maize pasta, if you don't gelatinize the maize, it will be very whitish. Second, the consistency, it will be absolutely weak. So most probably it will be crushed and melted when you are cooking. So the gelatinization of the maize is the first step to get a good maize pasta. The appearance of the pasta, it's different because it's a little, when you gelatinize the maize flour, it's a little bit glossy, transparent, glassy color, and vitreous appearance, and also vitreous consistency. Today, there is many different recipes of maize pasta that are not 100% maize. They mix also other flour that make maize pasta very close as a cooking and mouth filling to the normal pasta. We still, of course, not the same, but during the year improve a lot because the process improve and many other things improve. If Mr. Angelo Huiwa wants more explanation, we can answer with pleasure.
Good. We have some anonymous attendees, which is difficult to answer.
Yeah.
So we will not bother with those because they do not want to. They want to remain anonymous.
No, this is something interesting. Mr. Question is very easy to answer. Mr. Vivek Kumar, he's answering that he's saying that the protein content of pasta seems increasing after drying process. Actually, is not true. Obviously, the protein cannot increase because you are not creating protein. But the problem is the way how you measure the protein, because the method, let's say the official method, that is the Kiljal method, is measuring the quantity of nitron on the dry basis. So the quantity of nitron on the dry basis in the flour, it's different the quantity of nitron on the dry basis on the pasta. That is only the reason why you have higher protein results in the dry pasta. Is the method that you are using. It's not because you create protein. What will be the effect of... Okay, this is Mr. Hima, Mr. Hima or Mrs. I don't know. I'm sorry, Yedida. As I explained, the difference if you are using only flour on the pasta, if the flour is not pasta flour, but is a normal bakery flour, you will have typically high stickiness compared to the pasta flour and obviously compared to the durum with semolina pasta. Your stickiness, it will be extremely high. The color is gray or gray whitish compared to the semolina and compared to the pasta flour, because the high granulation also it will help to have a better color on the pasta. You will have also very soft consistency, very let's say bad mouth feeling. So you have the completely different effect and completely different product.
There is one interesting question here, Enrico. What is the suitable extraction ratio of whole wheat? So basically, I suppose.
Yeah, I can reply. I understand the question. It's very typical. This is a very important question because if you decide to go for a pasta production and you guys go to the site to buy a mill, or you have already mill to produce flour for pasta, you should put in your mind that you should design the diagram of the mill completely different to produce a pasta flour. If you don't do that and you want to produce a proper pasta flour in the normal bakery design mill, of course your extraction rate it will go down, because basically you have to extract the coarse fraction. And obviously, if you don't have enough purifier, now I'm doing a little bit your job, Milan. I'm sorry.
Yes, yes. Well,
Yeah.
I wanted to answer is that this question is from Mr. Mohammed. Mr. Mohammed, Alapala will be happy to give you some solutions on your mill. If you could send me a mail, and I'll be very happy to discuss with you about your mill diagram in regards to the whole wheat meal for pasta.
Yeah. But basically, that is the secret. You should talk to your supplier, Alapala, and you should design the meal, the diagram, suitable to produce a pasta flour. Pasta flour is not a bakery flour. It's completely different, and we can say is in the opposite way. So you need, I make an example, you need to add more purifier. That is one way, but not only. You need to design properly the fluting of the roller and many others modifications. So if you design the diagram properly, you can reach without any problem 77, 75, 76 extraction, or even 78% extraction. Because in the pasta flour, I always say that you should take care about starch damage, you should take care about the granulation, you should take care about the profile and the shape of the granules and so on, but the ash are not so important. You can reach without any problems 0.65, 0.68 on ash content made by soft wheat flour if you produce a pasta flour. And the color, it will not be an issue, because as I explained, you will have a different result, because your granules and your starch damage, it will help to keep the color whitish or a little bit yellowish. We should understand now that because the soft wheat pasta is becoming more and more trendy, and more people are starting to produce and eat soft wheat pasta, the millers and the client of the milling company, they need to add a new definition. There is a durum wheat meal, there is a soft wheat meal, there is a pasta flour meal. It is completely different because pasta soft wheat flour need dedicated approach.
And Mr. Mohammed, as Alapara, if we would be happy to give you a solution, so please send us a mail and we can discuss this further.
Okay, I will go if we still have 5 minutes. I can answer the last question from Mr. Ravindra Bangala. This is an interesting question. What should be the optimum granulation of flour for pasta production and the gluten index? Okay, very quick answer. Optimum granulation. Whatever you can, do it above 150 micron. I know it's difficult for soft wheat flour, but you should reduce as much as possible the particles below 150. Of course, this you should balance with the extraction and with the efficiency. But whatever you can do, obviously, if you have 60% or 70% of the granulation profile below under 50, it's very bad. But it's a step-by-step approach because it's not easy to change. So if you start from 70%, you have a good opportunity to improve the quality and to reduce as much possible the quantity of the flour below 150. Then you should have no more than 5% above 400, and you should have between, as explained, 150 and 300 microns, the main percentage of the granulation. So we can say less as possible below 150, 5 maximum percent above 400, and concentrate on the 150 to 300. This is one. Gluten. For the pasta is not good. I'm sorry for my friends from Perantani and from Bastak and from other company, but the gluten index system measured by Perantani system by centrifuge is not good for the pasta application. For the pasta application, you have only two methods to measure the quality gluten and to have a gluten index. One is the glutograph, sorry, and the other one is the glutopic. This is the let's say Brabander family. Glutograph is very old. It's a mechanical system. He will give you exactly the value between 0 to 5 Brabander unit, and the right value for the pasta is between 2 to 3.54. He will give you the exactly index of the gluten elasticity, stressability, and tenacity. There is a new machine that is a viscosimeter, basically, and is quite expensive, but is extremely useful. That is a Glutopic from Brabander, or otherwise you can go on the Chopin family with the new machine that is a Mixolab, and again he will give you some data, and I can explain in the mail how to read this data. But the typical gluten index by washing and centrifuging the gluten is not good for pasta. So I cannot answer because there is no good value for pasta.
I think we have to end over here. Thank you all for participating in this webinar. We do apologize for the background noises which were coming earlier on, but we will post this on our website where you will be able to go view it again. And thank you again, Enrico, for the wonderful presentation.
It was a pleasure, and it will be my pleasure to answer. And keep in touch, Milan, and I wish you all the best and successful pasta production to everybody. And also hope to, we will meet you soon in July, because we are organizing another section about the process and the technology. I'm correct or not?
Yes. What we will do is we will have in between, we will have another webinar, which we will talk about stone milling, which is...
Okay, that is very nice, because it's extremely trendy technology as well.
So we will talk about stone milling and what Alapala has to offer in terms of stone milling. And then we will have the continuation of your presentation. And then we hope to have Mr. Peter Lloyd from US Wheat Associates to talk to us about the future of wheat after this pandemic. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for participating in this webinar. And we look forward to seeing you in our next webinar.
Thank you very much to everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you soon.